Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights.
Saludos a todos y todas. Bienvenidos a la rueda de prensa de la
Good morning to all of you. Good afternoon. Welcome to PAHO's Press Briefing. Today is Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. My name is Luciana Viras with PAHO. I am public advisor with PAHO, and we have here interpretation into English, Portuguese, French, and Spanish. For this press briefing, you can find the instructions under interpretation. We have already received your questions via email. We thank the journalists who sent them ahead of time, and you will be able to ask questions also during the session by using the Q&A button. Please remember to identify yourself with your name and also the media outlet. We are going to start with the remarks by Dr. Carissa Etienne, PAHO's director, who will be updating you on several health emergencies in the region. We have connected in this session Dr. Marcos Espinal, acting assistant director of PAHO, Dr. Ciro Ugarte, who is Health Emergencies Director, and Dr. Sylvain Altigueri, Assistant Director with for Health Emergencies with PAHO. I give the floor to Dr. Etienne.
Hello. Thank you for joining today's press briefing. There are 4 health emergencies threatening our region that I would like to address today. Outbreaks of monkeypox and polio, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and now cholera. More than 3 years after the last reported case, cholera has resurged in Haiti. As of October 9th, Haiti has confirmed 32 cases and 18 deaths from cholera. Over 260 suspected cases are still awaiting confirmation in the area surrounding Port-au-Prince. Nearly 1/4 of these cases are among children between ages 1 and 4. Cholera has arrived in Haiti amid serious ongoing social and political unrest. These parallel challenges complicate efforts to provide humanitarian assistance and respond to this outbreak. Limited access to clean water is creating the perfect conditions for cholera, which is spread through contaminated water and food. Many cases are concentrated in areas affected by escalating street violence and gang activity, so it is likely that cases are significantly higher than the reported numbers. Lack of access to fuel also means that hospitals and healthcare centers are struggling to stay open. Despite these extremely difficult circumstances, the Haitian government, PAHO, and international partners are working to help the people of Haiti. PAHO has supported Haiti's Ministry of Health and international partners in setting up cholera treatment centers in affected areas. We have donated 2 tons of medical supplies and cholera kits to treat patients and prevent the further spread of this disease. And we continue to support Haiti's Ministry of Health to conduct epidemiological surveillance and to manage cases. We also stand ready to help the government quickly access vaccine supplies. Cholera's resurgence in Haiti is a reminder of how quickly diseases can spread. After all, a few months ago, Haiti was on the verge of being declared cholera-free. I also would like to take a moment to address the ongoing monkeypox outbreak. Over 45,000 cases have now been reported in our region, representing 63% of the cases reported globally. 95% of these reported cases have been among men, and 56% have occurred in HIV-positive individuals. The spread of monkeypox seems to be slowing down, but more than 2,300 new cases were still reported in the Americas last week. A majority of these were in the United States, but hundreds were reported in Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. PAHO has started to deliver vaccines to countries in the region, and despite limited supplies, they remain an important tool to reduce transmission in high-risk communities. We know how to track this disease. We know who is most at risk, and we know how to keep people safe from infection. We urge countries to use this knowledge to drive down cases and end transmission. Now, let's go on to COVID-19. Yes, the pandemic is still with us. Just last week, we've had more than 178,000 new cases officially reported in the region. Yet, falling trends globally as well as in the Americas are an encouraging sign that we may be transitioning from the acute phase of the pandemic into a phase of sustained control. But this is only possible if we continue to rely on testing and increase vaccination rates in every country. Over 70% of people in Latin America and the Caribbean have now been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. And while this is positive news, it hides the fact that over half of our member states are short of that target, and that 10 countries and territories have yet to reach even the 40% mark. PAHO is working with countries to ensure that everyone has access to vaccines. And we continue to call on all countries to work diligently to improve vaccination rates, especially among the most vulnerable, and to strengthen epidemiological surveillance. This lesson applies for polio as well. In addition to the United States, which reported a polio case earlier this year, 4 countries in our region, Brazil, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Peru, are at very high risk for polio transmission. And 8 others are considered high risk due to low vaccination coverage and underperforming polio surveillance. PAHO is working with each of these countries to update polio mitigation plans, and we're counting on all member states to ensure polio vaccination coverage returns to the previously high levels to prevent a wider outbreak. Polio causes paralysis for which there is no cure or treatment. And polio is a terrible disease that must stay in the past. With effective vaccines and decades of immunization experience, we have the power to keep it there. Our region is under pressure. Parallel health emergencies and fragile social, political, and natural environments highlight the importance of investing in and strengthening health systems. They also demonstrate the need for ongoing preparedness and swift response. We do not have the time to recover and prepare between health crises. We must work quickly with the tools that we have at hand to control these 4 health emergencies that are unfolding in the Americas today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Empezamos con las preguntas sobre el tema de la viruela símica.
We start with the questions on monkeypox. The very first question for the director.
From the Associated Press. Daniel asks us if you could please give us an overview of which countries in South America have received monkeypox vaccines and how many are actually vaccinating. He also asks if there are any scheduled to receive vaccines in the near future. Dr. Tien.
So let me thank you for this question. As I mentioned, PAHO, through the revolving fund, has started to deliver monkeypox vaccines to countries in our region. On October 4th, Brazil was the first country to receive an initial shipment of 9,800 doses. Chile followed, receiving its first shipment last Thursday, October 6th. Other countries that have expressed interest to obtain vaccines are the Bahamas, Belize, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guyana, Honduras, Jamaica, Panama, Peru, and Trinidad and Tobago. PAHO is working with these countries and the manufacturer Bavarian Nordic to complete requested deliveries by the end of the year, provided that the requirements are met. It's important to note that PAHO was the first WHO region to make vaccines available to countries as part of the emergency response to the monkeypox outbreak. As supply is still limited, vaccination among high-risk groups should be prioritized. Let's note that vaccines are an additional tool to reduce monkeypox transmission. They should be used in conjunction with surveillance, testing, and effective communication and engagement efforts to reach those that are most at risk of infection.
Thank you, Director. Pasamos a una pregunta de Elena Paucar del diario.
We move on to a question by Elena Baucar from El Comercio in Ecuador. She's asking, what is the evolution of monkeypox in the region? Rather, is there an acceleration of the number of cases are men still the ones who continue to be the most affected ones in the population, or have we noticed a change in this trend? Dr. Espinal. Thank you very much for the question. Globally, there are more than 70,000 cases that have been reported today, more than 72,000, and in most cases confirmed 26 deaths. But at the same time, this shows that we do not have many deaths. 107 countries have reported cases. The trends in this emergency show a decrease, a global decrease of about, over the last week, about 16% as compared to the previous 7 days. However, in spite of the fact that we also see in the Americas a trend, a downward trend, we continue to be the region that has the most number of cases. 80% of the cases that are reported come from the Americas. Over the last 7 days, about 1,040 new cases have been reported. So we should not lower our guard. Why? We need to continue to work so as to avoid a significant number of cases. Prevention is important. There are two variants. That is the other question. Clade 1 and 2. These are the new names to avoid stigmatizing the disease. 95% of the cases continue to be among men. More than 60% of cases are among individuals who already have HIV. So we're still witnessing an epidemic of significant proportion because we cannot say that surveillance is 100% perfect, and oftentimes surveillance systems do not capture all of the cases. So we cannot say that we have defeated the disease. We need to continue to implement prevention measures so that we can control this outbreak. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Espinal. We have two follow-up questions still on monkeypox. This is a question by Yolanda Maya from Foro TV and Enmas from Televisa Mexico. Yolanda is asking whether the virus is mutating, how many variants are known, and also which one is the most contagious one. She's also asking whether it is too costly to carry out PCR testing to diagnose monkeypox. Dr. Espinal. I thank you, Luciana. Both questions are very important, and they are also related because the virus is mutating. All of the viruses mutate. This is a virus that mutates very slowly as compared to COVID-19. This is an DNA virus. SARS is an RNA virus. These are very technical terms. It means that mutation is slower. However, mutations have already been identified, and the mutations may be beneficial or not. And we still do not know what the fate of these mutations will be. Sometimes mutations tend to weaken the viruses, and in other cases, they tend to strengthen them. So it is important for us to continue with our prevention measures, because if we start to see several mutations, it may show that the virus is easily being spread, and scientists in Minnesota have already identified some mutations. We cannot say that they are beneficial or that they will be indicating a higher risk. And this is linked to PCR. PCR is not expensive. It is inexpensive, and it is available in all of the countries of the region. PAHO has trained technical staff throughout the countries on lab aspects, and they have also offered the reagents and probes for the labs to offer that service to the population. And it is important because if we urge individuals who have symptoms, a temperature and some rashes to test, this could be a way to avoid further transmission to family members, friends, and also because we would be avoiding transmission to partners. So it is very easy to have the PCR done, and public health services also have that service available. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Espinal. Now we move on to a question on COVID-19. We start with Elena Bucar from El Comercio in Ecuador, who is asking the following. The government in Ecuador will be announcing the end of the pandemic this week and also the move to an endemic. What are the recommendations by PAHO and WHO for those countries that have relaxed restrictions in connection with coronavirus? And also the question is, what are the measures to be implemented in terms of vaccination and surveillance in the post-pandemic phase? Dr. Ugarte. Thank you, Luciana and Elena. Ecuador is one of the countries that has benefited greatly from the response to the pandemic, but mainly due to their success in vaccination with very high vaccination levels, and we have also seen a sustained reduction and also a reduction in the number of deaths and hospitalizations due to COVID. However, we should remain alert. And globally, as well as in several countries, we continue to observe hospitalizations and deaths, mainly among risk groups that are not vaccinated or that do not have full vaccination, including boosters. For example, globally, last week, million new cases were reported, even though the number of deaths is significantly lower as compared to other points in time. So we have some feeling of safety and assurance when we do not see the higher number of deaths and hospitalizations. But in the past, this has also led to higher numbers of hospitalizations and deaths. So as to the measures to be implemented as a consolidated and continuous response to the pandemic is that we need to continue to identify cases whenever they emerge. Any person who has symptoms in connection to COVID-19 or any other respiratory disease clearly needs to implement the measures to reduce the risk to avoid transmitting the disease to other persons. And that person should protect himself or herself as well as the individuals around them, and also report to the health authorities. We need to continue with sampling to determine the course of the pandemic and clearly to continue to implement the most important measure in connection with the reduction of hospitalizations and deaths, that is vaccination. Some groups are not completely vaccinated, and those who require boosters need to have the booster administered. There is a clear indication that that saves lives and reduces the impact on the health services, and when appropriate, to introduce measures to control outbreaks if we can identify that. For example, in the case of Europe, we're talking about France, Germany, Italy. They are reporting hundreds of thousands of new cases because they have relaxed their measures. So it is a clear indication that whenever our health services are burdened, the increase in cases could also lead to an increase in the number of deaths. Thank you. Thank you. We have a question by Matias Levy from Netscape in Spanish. The question is, with fewer test situations that seem to be more benign and people who are tired of, after almost 3 years of pandemic, do you feel that there is a gap between those cases that are reported of COVID-19 and the actual number? Is this a cause of concern, or is this a sign of transition to an endemic situation? Dr. Aldigueri, I thank you for that question. I would say that health measures, vaccination, and also management of patients have led to a decrease in the number of cases of COVID-19 and the number of deaths. But in 2022, and also up to from the beginning of the year and up to the present, there is a number of patients who have been hospitalized and that have died due to COVID-19, in particular among the elderly individuals who have several comorbidities, including those who are immunocompromised. So I would like to recall that in week 39, regionally, all of the Americas, from North America to the Caribbean and Central America, as well as South America, more than 400,000 cases, including more than 3,700 deaths, were reported during an epidemiological week. So beyond the epidemiological denominations, it is very important to continue to improve vaccination, the strengthening of health services and access to various treatments, and clearly to continue with the public health measures adapted to each context. So I hope I have addressed the question by Netscape. Thank you. I thank you, Dr. Aldigueri. We have a question by Valeria Ruben from Infobae, Argentina. Valeria is asking, does PAHO recommend passing laws or measures to improve ventilation to protect people from COVID-19 indoors? Dr. Ugarte, thank you, Valeria, Luciana. The quality of the air indoors is a priority, and there are parameters and standards by PAHO and also by each of the countries in connection with that air quality as well as the necessary ventilation. Public measures are implemented based on the level of transmission of a disease, but also the demand for public health services, the number of deaths, and also case diagnostics, among others. So, considering that there are specific recommendations for ventilation of indoor spaces, each country should adopt the measures they consider adequate based on the disease or the event that we're facing. So these quality controls need to be carried out routinely on a routine basis, and also in many studies that have been carried out to determine the application of ventilation systems with high quality filters. It has been proven that they reduce the possibility of transmitting these diseases in some industries, such as, for example, in the aviation sector. Those ventilation processes, as well as high performance filters, are one of the measures that significantly reduced transmission over long haul flights. So in indoors, whenever it is not possible to maintain proper ventilation and there is already a disease that is in active transmission, the best way is by protecting the persons, and if not possible to do it indoors, indeed, individuals should not gather there. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, doctor Ugarte. Pasamos a preguntas desde México sobre el tema del coronavirus. Melina Ochoa, reportera de Uno TV.
We go to questions from Mexico now, from Branca Valadez, from the Grupo Milenio. Similar questions to those of Melina Ochoa. The first one is the COVID-19 pandemic is taking a break in Mexico with low cases and deaths reported by the Health Secretariat this Tuesday. However, there is still the possibility of a resurging of cases in the winter. And so is the use of masks still a mandate, or right now it's not in Mexico? And so what do you foresee about a new outbreak in Mexico between fall and winter? Thank you very much, Melina, for your question. In the winter, we can always expect some resurgence in spite of the lower rates that we have been seeing with COVID-19, because we also have the complication of influenza. Rates begin to go up. So we will always see a growing trend. And for this reason, it is important for us to maintain public health measures regarding masks, mandate or no mandate. PAHO has always recommended still to maintain your mask on when you're in enclosed areas, especially when there's no good ventilation. And so this is the recommendation: wear your mask in closed areas. But each country is sovereign. They can do, therefore, what they deem, but they should always educate the population about the risk of getting COVID again, or getting COVID when you are in closed areas and are not wearing your mask. It is important for the person to decide for themselves about their own risk, but the recommendation is that if you can wear your mask in closed areas where there is no adequate ventilation, then this is a good thing to do, to wear your mask to prevent COVID-19. For influenza, continue with vaccines, surveillance, and education to the population always. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Espinal. Now a question from Tobias from Die Welt in Germany, and his question is in
COVID deaths per 100,000 people in Chile is now almost as high as in the USA and Brazil, although Chile is considered a model in terms of vaccination strategy. Is there a special reason for the high death toll in the country? Dr. Ugarte, please.
Muchas gracias, Luciana, por esa pregunta. Chile en la última semana ha sido uno de los países que mostró.
Chile has been one of the countries showing the highest increase in the number of new cases of COVID-19. The report we issued last week indicated that there were about 24,000 new cases reported, and that was a 23% increase almost. Nevertheless, the increase in numbers of deaths was significantly lower, almost 1/3 of the proportion. So even though Chile is showing an increase in the number, they still have the capacity to reduce the number of deaths proportionally, and they did so during the pandemic. And Chile is adopting the measures. They are following the cases. They are treating the cases, and we consider that those cases that have been presented in short periods of time need to be looked at in the longer term, but Chile has a lower fatality rate than all the other countries. Thank you, Dr. Ugarte. Now we have many questions about polio. A question from Blanca Valadez from Grupo Milenio. What is Mexico's expectation given the low vaccination rates? Dr. Espinal. Yes, thank you very much. In the Americas, coverage is not only for polio, but for measles, diphtheria, and other diseases, other vaccine-preventable diseases have changed in recent years, in the 10 recent years. And it is related to the COVID-19 pandemic. It is important to recover the coverage. The organization already has a specific plan to work with the countries regarding doing a recovery of vaccination rates, especially in the case of polio, and other measures too to prevent outbreaks of other diseases. It's important to develop active campaigns, vaccination campaigns, education to the population as well, and prevent problems such as infodemic or the hesitancy, vaccine hesitancy, because it is been proven that vaccines are efficacious, and the only thing that will prevent those possible outbreaks of polio is increasing the vaccine coverage rates. We have countries that are at medium risk, others at low risk, and some at high risk. So we have plans in Mexico and in other parts of the region to work with the authorities to implement different measures, vaccination campaigns, and other measures to make sure that those outbreaks don't come to our countries because they are devastating. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Espinal. Now I have a question from Gabriela Solorzano from Nicaragua, and she asks, recently the country has a mild increase in COVID-19 cases, but with Hurricane Julia, does PAHO foresee any increases in COVID because of the fact that people are gathered together when they have to evacuate and be in one single place? I would like to express my solidarity with Nicaragua and other countries that are recovering from Julia, the most recent hurricane, and we are sorry for all what this means for the risk and the health of the population and the infrastructures and structures. Nicaragua is one of the countries with the highest vaccination coverage. They have very high coverage levels against COVID-19, and Nicaraguans have seen over the years that there is a culture of going home and using their own homes as shelter, and also but however, many homes have been flooded and they have had to go seek refuge elsewhere. So we are working with the health authorities and the response brigades to make sure that the conditions in those shelters are appropriate and thus reduce the risk of transmission of COVID-19 as well as other diseases, especially in those areas where there are still high water levels and severe damage to the residences. Response groups are mobilizing right now home to home, looking for febrile respiratory cases, diarrhea, and taking appropriate measures. So with the experience that Central American countries have, and Nicaragua in particular, to respond to these kinds of events, we trust that there won't be a significant increase in cases. However, this is a topic of concern. And of course, we need to do close surveillance and follow the situation. We need to be on the alert because usually people who are affected by these kinds of emergencies are usually, of course, those groups who have less access to health services, and they can usually be more affected with diseases such as COVID-19, etc. So following cases is very critical, and that's the kind of work that is taking place in Nicaragua right now. Thank you, Dr. Ugarte. Now, a question or two questions about the situation of cholera in the region from Violeta Vilar, but also Farah Riachi from Noticiero Televisa. Is there a risk of expanding cholera in the region given the situation in Haiti? Dr. Aldigueri. Yes, thank you for your questions. It is a regional concern indeed. But first of all, I'd like to emphasize that we are not in a similar situation to what we had in 2010 to 2012, where there was an exaggerated spread of cholera in the whole Haiti territory during 2010 to 2011. Cases with the same strain as detected in Haiti had been detected in Dominican Republic, Cuba, and Mexico. What we know right now is information coming from the Ministry of Health of Haiti from October 11. Suspect cases had been reported in West, one of the departments where the city of Port-au-Prince, Sant and Nip. Most cases are concentrated in neighborhoods that are of difficult access because there is a great deal of violence in the West Department, and the great concern is in that department of West, including Port-au-Prince. The risk assessment regarding WHO, regarding dissemination of the outbreak, has been published in recent days, and it is on the web page. So we consider that there's a very high risk of dissemination to other departments in the Republic of Haiti, a moderate risk for the region of the Americas, and a minimal risk at world level. But within this context, it's important to emphasize that the most important risk is in the Dominican Republic because, of course, they are on the same island. They are both countries in the Hispaniola island, and therefore, Dominican Republic has activated their own contingency plans. So the core recommendation from PAHO has to do with regional reactivation of response plans and strengthening of surveillance. And of course, the Pan American Health Organization would be supporting and cooperating with all countries in the region so that they can reactivate their plans and strengthen surveillance. I hope I have answered the different concerns of the colleagues. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Aldigueri. Now we have a question about vaccines. Isabella Avalin from Estado de Sao Paulo. She asks in English,
criteria for countries in need of vaccines, and how does PAHO work to ensure that countries in the Americas have access to it? Dr. Espinal, please.
Sí, muchas gracias por muy importante pregunta.
Thank you very much for your question. And before I answer, I will add something related to Mexico that I forgot to mention, and it is to say that the Health Secretariat, in coordination with PAHO, is working on a massive immunization campaign, not only against polio, but also diphtheria, whooping cough, and they expect to reach a population of 2 million children with the hexavalent vaccine. Mexico is preparing itself for the possibility of a polio outbreak. Regarding vaccines, it's a very important question because it reminds us and it helps us remind our member states of the need or the use of the revolving fund, which has been with us for over 40 years, and the prestige has been earned over the years with its work. And the fund assists our countries providing vaccines, and that's why the Americas has been so successful in eliminating immune preventable diseases. The revolving fund is a mechanism of the countries where they can have access to vaccines of all kinds, approved vaccines. And more recently, we've seen the case of the monkeypox vaccine, where the director called on the directing council of PAHO so that negotiations were started with the manufacturer of this vaccine against monkeypox, which is effective to some degree and can help prevent monkeypox. And it is one of the tools needed to deal with this problem. Today, 14 countries have reaffirmed their commitment to purchase monkeypox vaccines through the fund, and the region is the first in the world to have access to vaccines thanks to the successful negotiation of the revolving fund and the manufacturer, and some vaccines are already arriving in the countries like Brazil and others. Thank you. I hope I answered your questions. Now we have come to the end of the press briefing and questions. I would like to call on Dr. Etienne for her final remarks. Please, Dr. Etienne.
Thank you so much. So as I close, I really would like again to draw attention to the difficult situation that our neighbors in Haiti face, and a situation that is only compounded by the resurgence of cholera. But please let us be clear. Haiti knows how to manage cholera. National Health Services have the experience and the technical expertise to do so. But the ongoing civil unrest and precarious security situation in the country hinder efforts to contain and control this outbreak. Of course, these same situations also continue to impact other health priorities, such as maternal health, HIV, tuberculosis and malaria programs, chronic health conditions, and routine vaccinations, among others. Today, for example, only 41% of Haitian children have received their complete measles vaccination, and 51% only have been fully vaccinated against polio. And this is way below recommended levels, leaving Haiti at high risk of additional outbreaks. To prevent a further worsening of this already dismal scenario, access to health services must be assured. It is imperative that health workers reach communities to reactivate surveillance, engage people to protect their own health, and to deliver life-saving care. PAHO continues to work closely with Haiti, and we stand ready to support the government's emerging needs as the cholera outbreak continues to evolve. And this includes the access to vaccines. Let me thank you for your presence with us today, for the questions that you've asked, and also for your continued interest in this briefing. Thank you and have a wonderful week.
Thank you very much, Director, for those very important.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.